In today's lesson, we'll be looking at fraction and the subtopics that surround fraction. Under fraction, in this lesson, we'll be looking at common fraction, mixed fraction, proper fraction, improper fraction, and also subsequently in the lesson we'll also be taking a look at how to convert or change mixed fraction to proper and to improper fraction, vice versa. We will also be looking at how to add, subtract, divide, and then multiply fractions. But before we go into that, we want to briefly go into the concept of fraction. So in this lesson, fraction, as we all know, is a part of mathematics, a branch in mathematics. A fraction is a mathematical representation of a part of a whole number, or otherwise a part or a division of a quantity of an object or image or anything concrete or expressible. Fraction typically can be written in form of representing each number. Say we have A to represent a number of, let's say, 2, or B is assigned to have a number, let's say 5. So putting the expression in a form of fraction, which is A over B, can also be written as 2 over 5. So here it does mean that typically we can put fraction in the form of A, where the numerator will be given as A, and the denominator will be given as B. Fraction also are of various types, type of which the denominator will be lesser than the numerator, and a condition which the numerator will be greater than the denominator. A case where the numerator is lesser than the denominator is referred to as proper fraction. Why? Whenever the numerator is larger in number than the denominator, then it refers to as improper fraction. So to go deeper or further into understanding proper fraction or understanding fraction as a whole, it entails some meanings which are categorized also in 3 places. The first of which is referred to as part fraction. It's the part and another part of fraction. The other one is referred to as part of a whole, that is part whole fraction. And another one here is also called whole part fraction, a whole which has part of it as a fraction. So for the part to part fraction, this means a fraction or a ratio represents relationship of one part of a whole of a quantity or another part of that quantity. An example of which we have a ratio of 8th graders at Smith Mid School who are in the school band are 40 in number, but those that are not in the school band are 110 in number. In total of these students, we have 150 of them that are graders. So those that are in the school band are parts of all the graders, which are what? Which are 40. Why those that are not in the school band are 110 in number altogether? So to represent these separate groups of students or graders in this mid school has to be put as a fraction of this expression 40 over 110, where the 40 is part of the graders, the 110 is also part of the graders. Both they are refers to the fraction of all the graders in the mid school. So this is one part in context of explanation or meaning of fraction. Another one is when we are referring to part whole fraction. In the context of fraction, as part whole fraction refers to the relationship between a portion of a fraction or a part of a whole or the whole itself. Take a look at an example. An example of this is, let's say we have a bag of marbles and you want to describe some part of the marbles being having color red, but the total marbles are 10 in number as a whole that are put in the bag. So those red marbles, they are referred to as parts of those 10 marbles in total. So this will be expressed as the numerator because it's part of the total marbles. Why the whole here is referred to as the generality of the marbles that are in the bag. So part whole fraction in this case will then be 4 over 10 in expression. Another understanding about the meaning of fraction or in context of fraction is when we have whole part fraction. In this meaning, a fraction is a ratio represents relationship between a part and its whole. An example is also when we have a cake being sliced into 15 pieces. Out of these 15 pieces, we have those that have taken their share out of these 15 pieces, while the leftover, the one that are left, are still remaining 9 pieces. So the number of pieces originally that has been cut is the whole and is represented by the numerator. The whole that has been pieces into 15 will be the numerator, while the leftover, after people have taken their share out of it, the leftover is now referred to as the part, which is the denominator. So you can now say that the fraction that refers to a whole part fraction in this sense is 15 over 9. So this now represents the understanding or the expression of fraction that relates or that refers to whole part fraction. So from here, having gotten this explanation, we can then move to another thing entirely under fraction. This has to do with common fraction that we have introduced earlier in this lesson. It is usually possible to use fraction to describe quantities like fruit, like objects and thereabout, but it's usually not easier to describe quantities with just an whole number. For example, you can say an expression of a fraction, say 1/3 of a fraction, or 1/3, which simply means 1/3, or 3/5, which simply means 3/5. 2/3, that can also means 2/3. 4/9, which also means 4/9 in this sense. Or we can also go further to express common fraction in a more explanatory manner. This is where you can go further to express fraction in the form of, say, 4/6 of the square are shaded. So if we consider this diagram over here, or I will eat 1/3 of the cheese. So if you have a particular cheese that you have that you can divide into 3 parts by taking one of it. So as an example, a common fraction can also be expressed as this. As an example, looking at this expression 4/10, as we said earlier, the upper number is referred to as the numerator, while the lower number is referred to as the denominator. Also, our list in today's lesson is majorly going to center on mixed fraction, how to deal with mixed fraction or improper fraction or proper fraction. That is way or method you can change a proper fraction, how to identify a proper fraction, how to identify a mixed fraction, change it from mixed to proper fraction back to mixed fraction. So here is an example to get this better. Example of having mango. The third of the mango has been split into 2. So that means we have 3 mango, and the third one has been divided into 2. So here we have the mango to be expressed as 2.5 mangoes. So, or when you are referring to water that is inside a jar that also been measured in liters. So here we can express this as 1 1/3 liters of water, which does means one whole number 1/3. But for the mangoes, which we have 2.5 mangoes, that is also referred to as 2 whole number 1/2. Also, a mixed fraction having type of expression expressed as 3.5. So this type of expression is what we refer to as a mixed fraction. When we see an expression of this nature, it's called a mixed fraction. So it is possible to express any mixed fraction as a single fraction. That is converting mixed fraction to a single fraction. So this is always possible, and this is what we'll be looking at next in our explanation on fraction. To express mixed fraction as a proper fraction or as a single fraction using 3 whole number 1/2. This can then be written as 3 plus 1/2 given to be. Here we then multiply the denominator of this proper fraction, say by the other side of it. This is what I mean. We have 3/1, which means that 3 over 1 can still give us 3, so we express that in that manner. Then 2, which then give us 3 multiplied by 2, and the denominator itself also multiplied by 2, then plus 1 over 2. This equally give us the numerator to be 6 over 2, then plus 1 over 2. For a case of having fraction, addition of fraction, fraction, improper fraction, having the same denominator, then add numerator accordingly, ignoring denominator because they are already having same denominator. It's the both fraction. So in this case, we now have 6 plus 1 over 2, which then give us 7 over 2. So here we have been able to put this mixed fraction to a single fraction.